So we'll join. We'll start the class. Let them join. So if it comes to here, as we know that organelles where the photosynthesis reaction will takes place, they are only called as chloroplast. So that is why chloroplasts are called as a site of photosynthesis. So if you'll observe here, these chloroplasts are the organelles in the cell of what? A cells of green plants which contain chlorophyll. Which contain chlorophyll, and
Chlorophyll.
photosynthesis will takes place. So that is why we can say these chloroplasts are the most important substance for photosynthesis reaction because they only contains the chlorophyll. So this chlorophyll only will you observe the sunlight and then only the photosynthesis reaction will carried out. So these photosynthesis occurs in the organelles. So they are only called as chloroplast, which are present in the photosynthetic cells. These chloroplasts are present where? These chloroplasts are present in photosynthetic cells.
Photosynthetic cell.
So these photosynthetic cells also is called as what? Mesophile cells. What we should call? Mesophile.
Mesophile cell.
So these chloroplasts are present in these photosynthetic cells or mesophile cells of green plants. So green plants contains these mesophile cells, and these mesophile cells contains chloroplast, and this chloroplast contains chlorophyll. So there the photosynthesis reaction will take place. So that is the reason we can say the site of photosynthesis in a cell of the leaf are called as chloroplast. The site of photosynthesis in a cell of the leaf are called as chloroplast. Now, these chloroplasts we can observe, understand, we can see easily by using a light microscope. Understand, we can observe this this chlorophyll by using a light microscope. Light microscope. So if you cut the leaf cross section, understand, if you do the cross section of the leaf, understand, suppose my hand is a leaf, then if you cut like this cross section, if you do the cross section of the leaf, then these chloroplasts can be seen as, understanding, a numerous disc-like structures, understanding, disc-like organelles in the photosynthetic cell, like in the sense of they will be looks like this. There will be disc-like structures, and here we can observe the chloroplast. You can observe the chloroplast, which is present in the photosynthetic cells. And these photosynthetic cells, understand, so these photosynthetic cells are mesophile cells of the palisade tissue. Understanding, palisade tissue, it is present just below the upper epidermis. Remember, this full photosynthetic cell of the palisade tissue, which is covered with some kind of a tissue on the upper layer and bottom layer. Understanding, like this, a tissue is going on. So the tissue is only called as palisade tissue. Palisade tissue. So the tissue which is present just below the some upper layer. So that upper layer only we used to called as, that upper layer only we used to called as epidermis. What we should call? What we should call?
Epidermis.
Epidermis. So epidermis below we have a palisaded tissue. Below that we have a understand, synthetic cells or mesophile cells. So these photosynthetic cells and mesophile cells only, it contains chloroplast. So now let us see the picture for better understanding. Then we can study where it is present, the guard cells, where it is stroma is present, how the epidermis is present and all, what is the use of that and all, we'll study. So now your textbook, they have given some picture. Let it be, it is a very small and it is not that much clear also. So now so let us observe the picture. Can you able to see the picture? Yes, all of you. Yes. So now in this picture, you will observe carefully, all of you. We have a top layer. You can see that a thick line which is going like you can see here curved shapes. Understanding? So here, can you able to observe that? So this part is called as understanding cuticle. What we should call cuticle. And below that we have this shape you may observe here. So this is the part which we used to call as upper epidermis. What we should call upper epidermis.
Upper epidermis.
Below that we have this kind of, you can see that half like this shape. So this is only called as understanding palisade layer. So palisade layer inside we have, you can see chloroplast is present. And this you can see the disc-like structures. This is only called as what we should call photosynthetic cells or mesophile cells. Are you understanding, Amma? So here we have a chloroplast, the green substance. Are you understanding the green substance everywhere? Yes or no? All of you. Are you observing the green substance? Sir. So that green substance is only called as chlorophyll. And chlorophyll, middle if you'll observe, we have some empty spaces also. So that from here, this part to this part, I will say that what is that and what we have to call as, what is the use of that also. So this part from here to here, this is called as spongy layers. What we should call?
Spongy layers.
Spongy layers. And middle we have some gaps. You may observe that. So what is that gaps called as? They are saying that air spaces. And bottom, like exactly bottom, you can see up like exactly bottom, we have lower epidermis. Have you observed that? Here upper epidermis and bottom we have a same like structure that is called as lower epidermis. Lower epidermis. And the lower part, we have middle some kind of a small holes. That holes only we used to call as what we should call exchange of gases. That is only called as
stoma.
So stoma is immediately covered by whom? Stoma is covered by two kinds of cells. That is only called as God cells. Understand or not? So this is what the structure of leaf. Understand? So now observe this picture. So now we will study one by one. So if you observe in this picture, understand? So this is what the structure of leaf. Understand? So we can see that middle layers, the middle layers in the leaf, exactly at the palisade tissue, the palisade layer, if you'll observe. So palisade layer and spongy layer. We have two layers. Have you noticed it? Palisade layer and spongy layer. You have it or not?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So this we have two layers in middle. Upper epidermis, lower epidermis. And middle we have two layers. One is called as palisade layer.
Palisade layer. Spongy layer.
Spongy layer. So let us see now. If we'll see here. So the photosynthetic cell, which we used to call as mesophile cell, understanding that is only we can call as this middle layers. That middle layers is called as palisade layer and spongy layer. Both contains in this photosynthetic cell are mesophile cell. So that is why you can see that middle part, the two parts, except lower epidermis and upper epidermis. Understanding, except this lower epidermis and upper epidermis. So that mid part. That mid two parts, what we should call? What we should call? Photosynthetic or mesophile cells. Photosynthetic cell or mesophile cell. So whenever they will ask you mesophile cell, which contains two things. What is that? Palisade layer as well as spongy layer.
Spongy layer.
Yeah, palisade layer and spongy layer. You take this picture because you have to draw this picture. Understanding? Whenever they will ask you also. That is more even clear. So if you'll observe, this palisade layer and the spongy layer is only called as photosynthetic cell. The others we used to call as mesophile cell. Now, these cells, they contains, mainly if you'll observe, a green kind of circulars is present. What we should call them? A green circulars. That is only called as what? A chlorophyll. Yes or no? So, the cells which they contains more chlorophyll than other plant cells, if you'll observe. So other plant cells and all, they does not contain chlorophyll much. So these two cells only, these two layers, what is that layers? Palisade layer and spongy layer only contains more amount of, understand, more than any other plant cell, they contains the chlorophyll. So now here the reaction will take place. So this photosynthetic cell of a green leaf may contain, remember, understanding, around 100 or more tiny chloroplasts in it. If you'll observe, single this mesophile cell, it may contain 100 or more than 100. Understand? 100 or more than 100 chloroplasts in it. Chloroplast in it. So now each chloroplast contains what? Each chloroplast contains what?
Chlorophyll. Chlorophyll.
Each chloroplast contains chlorophyll. So
Chlorophyll.
a whole leaf may contains many thousands of photosynthetic cells. One, if you'll observe, a green leaf may contains 100 or more tiny chloroplasts in it. And if you take whole leaf, it may contains many thousands of photosynthetic cells. So here, what will happen? The carbon dioxide needed for photosynthesis, exchange of gases, going out the oxygen as well as water evaporation through the process called as transpiration, and absorption of carbon dioxide, which is useful for the photosynthesis reaction. Everything will be, what will be taken? It will be enters from the air into the leaf through the bottom part. That bottom part only what we should call? Through which part it is enters? Through which part it is enters?
Stoma.
Stoma, which is present at the bottom of the leaf. You may see here. So here, bottom of the leaf, we have a stoma. Like here so many stomas will be present. Here only one section we are zooming and we are showing it. Understand? A particular part alone, it is like this. A particular part of the leaf alone, it contains hundreds of chloroplasts. Like that, if you take one leaf fully, thousands of chloroplasts will be present. And the exchange of gases, the carbon dioxide will be entering into this stoma. Understand? So CO2, which will be useful for photosynthesis reaction, will be enters through the stoma. And last class I have taught you when the stoma will open and when the stoma will close. It will be controlled by whom? Stoma will be controlled by whom?
God cells.
God cells. So that is what you should remember. So these carbon dioxide, whatever it is present in air, which is required for photosynthesis, which will enter from the air into the leaf through the stomata. Understand? So that stomata is the plural form, which is called as stoma. Understand? So this stomata in its surface, at the bottom surface, the leaf is having more number of stomata. Understand? Stomas. So through this only the carbon dioxide will be enters. Understand? And these carbon dioxide, whatever it is enter, which will be diffuse. Understanding? Which will be enters into the mesophile cells and reaches where finally? It will enter into the mesophile cells and will reaches to where? Reaches to chloroplast. And chloroplast means inside who will be there? Already. Chlorophyll. So finally, the carbon dioxide is, understanding, diffuses into photosynthetic cell or mesophile cells, and finally it will enters into chloroplast. So if it reaches to the chloroplast, means in the sense of it reaches to whom? It reaches to chlorophyll. Understanding now? So now carbon dioxide is entered. So then one more thing is there. Who is that? What is another raw material?
Water.
Water. So how the water will reaches? How the water will reaches?
By root.
How the water will reaches? Who will carry the water? Who will carry the water? Last class I
Xylem. Xylem.
So
Xylem.
that is understanding. So carbon dioxide will carry it through the stomata to the mesophile cell or photosynthetic cells, and finally it will reaches to the chloroplast. Understand? So from that chloroplast, it will be again reaches to the chlorophyll. Like that same way, by the time water, if you observe the water, understand? So these water carried to the leaf by the help of xylem. Understand? By the help of xylem vessels, and passes into the again which cell? Passes into the again which cell? They must go to again what? They must go to again photosynthetic cell or photophile cell, because they are only correct if the both reactants will react, then only we is to get the glucose. Is it yes or no?
Yes.
Or carbohydrate. So water is carried by xylem understanding, vessels, xylem vessels. From there, it passes into where? It passes into mesophile cell. Understanding? So mesophile cell. So finally, mesophile cells. From there, by the process called as diffusion, it will
Chloroplast.
understanding diffusion into again what reaches to the chloroplast.
Chloroplast.
Chloroplast. Now, one by the help of
Chloroplast. Chloroplast.
understanding. So water by the help of xylem vessels and carbon dioxide by the help of stomata. Now both reaches to the chloroplast. So finally, what will happen? Both reaches to the chloroplast. What is happening now? What will happen?
Diffusion.
So both will be reacting. So we used to get the photosynthesis reaction will be carried out. So they will start producing what?
Glucose.
Understand, Amma?
Carbohydrate.
Carbohydrates. So that is what, how the understanding photosynthesis reaction will be carried out in chloroplast. So in the structure of the leaf we should study. Now, if we'll observe, we have a one layer at the top of, have you noticed it in the leaf structure? The first layer, the protective layer for this, understanding, a cells, that layer name is called as cuticle. Have you studied that cuticle? Have you seen this cuticle? Cuticle, cuticle, upper epidermis. On the top of epidermis, we have a one protective layer. Bottom also we have. Have you noticed it or not? Yes.
Yes,
so that is only called as cuticle. What we should call?
Cuticle.
Cuticle. So what is the use of this, sir? See, we have a use of palisade layer. We have a use of spongy layer because they only contains what? Chloroplast. So there only it will be carried out, the photosynthesis reaction. Then what is the use of understanding this cuticle? That is what we should study. So if we'll observe this cuticle, understanding it is actually a protective layer. Understanding it is a waxy protective layer which we used to call cuticle, which is present above and below. Understanding which is present above and below the leaf. It helps to reduce the loss of water from the leaf. Remember, if we'll take understanding this cuticle, it is like a waxy, understanding, like wax, like a candle wax, like that. It is a waxy protective layer. Protective layer. Layer for what? Layer for leaf. Understanding, which is present both top and bottom of the leaf. Understanding, and it will help in where? Which will help in where?
Protect
parasitic invasion also, which will help in reducing
the loss of water.
Loss of water. So that is all about the.
What is the center one in the upper epidermis and lower epidermis called?
That is like a protective layers for the guard cells. Understand that which is present inside that two layers. What is the two layers are present inside? We have a two layers, correct? Spongy layers and chloroplast, palisade layer. So that is like a layers, walls. We are constructing walls, correct? If you want to keep something middle, what Amma?
No, sir. Between the cuticle, something is present. No, sir. That one.
What? Epidermis, upper epidermis and lower
epidermis. Upper epidermis.
Upper epidermis and lower also we have epidermis, correct? So that is, you observe here how the picture will be like that. There will be like a walls helping that, like they are holding that middle two layers. What is the two layers?
Spongy layer and palisade layer.
Palisade layer.
Then cuticle, including the cuticle only, is upper epidermis and lower epidermis.
Upper epidermis above cuticle is present. Understanding, and lower epidermis down also cuticle is present. Like suppose if we take epidermis is like our skin. Understanding, skin which is protecting our body organs. Are you understanding?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So on that above we have a one coating layer. That coating layer is only called as cuticle. Understand? So which will help in loss of water. Okay.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Yeah. Write it now. They're just protective barriers. Understanding? Nothing is there. Understand, Amma? Both this cuticle and the upper epidermis and lower epidermis, they are the protective layers. That's all. Okay.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. But actually, what Dina said, that is also most important. They will protect from the infection also. Infection in the sense of like some parasitic invasion. They will come and they will start eating and all, and they will start releasing some chemicals and all. Correct. So many flies and all will come. So that is also they will from the infection also. This will protect the leaf. Understand? So this both the cuticle and epidermis, they will work like a protective barrier against the any kind of mechanical injury. Few times because of wind, they may be tear. Is it yes or no? That leaf can easily tear. Yes. Basically, Amma,
Yes,
basically the leaf is very sensitive in nature. Correct. Easily it can be teared. Yes or no?
yes,
Damaging.
yes, sir.
So that is also will be protected by this one. So they have little bit strength because of this cuticle and upper and lower epidermis. So they may be protecting from. They will work like a barriers against this mechanical injury. Understanding, and water loss mainly. Water loss and any other infections. Understanding, caused by these parasitic invasions. What Dina said. That is the use of upper epidermis and lower epidermis. But you have to draw this structure. Understanding. So now write it. So few things I will say. This have you taken that? Have you taken the picture?
Yes,
Have
sir.
you taken the screenshot? All of you.
Yes, sir.
So now you write few points. I will say that you write. Later we go for next. The site of photosynthesis. The site of photosynthesis. How many of you understand this? Have you understand now each part? What is the use of
Yes,
each
sir.
part in the leaf?
Yes, sir.
Yeah,
Yes, sir.
everybody must know the use of each part in that. Understand? It starts with the cuticle. So what is the parts are present? What is the parts are present? Tell me. Cuticle,
Cuticle, upper
epidermis,
epidermis,
upper
lower
epidermis,
epidermis,
Spongy layer.
palissader, spongy layer, lower epidermis,
spongy layer, and lower epidermis. Lower epidermis also it
stoma,
contains.
guard cells,
guard cells and
guard
stoma.
cells,
Stoma, gut.
Yeah. And
Then again cuticle.
palisade layer and this is spongy layer. Both are called as mesophyll cell or
mesophyll cells,
photosynthesis. So
photosynthetic.
there looks like a
So what will happen in that spongy layer, sir?
spongy layer is also that is only chloroplast only they contains both.
Oh, okay, sir.
Understanding. And but the spongy layers, if you'll observe, these structures are the disc-like structures are very big in size. Understanding, and they majorly contains air spaces like storage of air. Are you understand what I'm saying? They will store the air.
So they function as storage of air, sir.
Air storage of air. That is why it is called as spongy layer. What is the use of sponge? Have you seen the sponge? Somebody is making.
Yes, sir.
A sponge contains what always? Sponge contains holes, middle. Yes or no?
Yes, sir.
Sponge always filled with air. If you are not making wet, always it is filled with air. Means like air is stored inside. That like that, the spongy layers also contains air spaces. So that air can store the carbon dioxide, whatever the gases enters, that can be stored. Okay.
Okay, sir.
That is. Okay, write it now. The site of photosynthesis. The site of photosynthesis in a cell of the leaf, are called as what we should call? What we should call?
Chloroplast.
Chloroplast. So now, if you want to do the photosynthesis reaction, we need two raw materials. One is carbon dioxide and another one is what? Water. So
Water.
carbon dioxide will be carried to stomata or stoma, which is protected by guard cells. Understand? So later, as well as if you take the water will be carried out by xylem vessels. Xylem vessel to mesophyll cell, and from mesophyll cell it will be diffusing into chloroplast. So there the reaction, the photosynthesis reaction will be carried out or taking place. So now if we'll take this upper epidermis and lower epidermis, as well as on above the upper epidermis and lower epidermis, we have a protective layer called as cuticle. So that you write it. Right. A waxy protective layer called as
Sir, you said the site of photosynthesis after that.
Site of photosynthesis after the chloroplast. I have not told you that. That is called as chloroplast. That is called as chloroplast. Dina, you are asking osmosis. Why sir osmosis is not taking place? Why it is taking place diffuser? Is it correct, Dina? So now you see, Dina, what I said. Osmosis means a concentration. One side it is low and one side it is more. Understand? One side it is more, so that if you remove that, if you make some kind of semi-permeable membrane, so that molecules will start transforming and it will get the equal concentration. That is called as osmosis. Is it yes or no, Dina? But if you'll observe here, there is no kind of carbon dioxide or water is present at the chloroplast. So now let me imagine this is the mesophile cell, which will be looks like a disc cell. Understand? Here chloroplast is present. So now we have a carbon dioxide here outside. If already something is there here and if something is more here, then we can say that it will become balancing, so that we can say osmosis process. But here nothing, just it is penetrating inside. Understand? It is diffusing, going there from here. We have a more concentration, so that it will start going inside. Slowly it will diffuse us. Like a sugar habit will be, like if you keep the class 9th you may studied potassium potassium chromate, potassium, what the KMNO4, what we should call? KMNO4. I forgot the name. What is the
Permanganate,
name?
sir. Potassium permanganate.
Permanganate. Very good. Potassium permanganate. So if we'll keep in the beaker, it will start, the color will start rising upwards slowly. That is called as diffusion process. Because if already the concentration difference is there, then the concentration will become equal. That is called as osmosis. But here the diffusion will take place, because only the carbon dioxide and water is bringing from outside. So they will start entering into the mesophilic cells. That is the process going penetrating. That process is called as diffusion. Okay, Dina? That is why we are using here diffuser, right? A thin waxy protective layer, 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 a thin waxy protective layer called cuticle, above and below a leaf, above and below a leaf, above and below a leaf, which helps to reduce, the loss of water from the leaf. The loss of water from the leaf. The loss of water from the leaf. The upper and lower epidermis, right? The upper and lower epidermis and its waxy cuticle, the upper and lower epidermis and its waxy cuticle provide a protective barrier.
After epidermis?
Epidermis and its waxy cuticle. Provide a protective barrier. Against mechanical injury, like our compound wall. Understand? That is mechanical injury, water loss and infection. That's all. You understand?
Yes, sir.
That is. So now this is all about the site of photosynthesis. So that picture only you people need to draw in our classwork. Take 1 hour, half an hour time also, but practice the same picture for your future exams also. Then only we people can get very good marks. Understand? So this is all about the
Yes,
site of photosynthesis called as chloroplast. So now this is the mode of understanding, nutrition in plants, that is only we used to call as understanding. So all the kind of autotrophic mode of nutrition or photosynthesis, both are same. So which will be carried out in green plants alone. Understanding? Who is having a green pigment called as chlorophyll. So they are the primary producers of food. They can produce themselves. They will produce their food by themselves. That is why that mode of nutrition, what we should call autotrophic mode of
Nutrition.
nutrition. So that is. So now let us come to the next concept which we are going to study. Now autotrophic mode of nutrition is over. Means nutrition in plants is over. Next, who is there? What is the next concept? Nutrition in whom? Plants over. Nutrition in plants is only called as
Animals.
Animals.
who will come?
Animals, sir.
Animals. So all of you keep reading nutrition in animals. Nutrition in animals. Shall we start?
Yes, sir.
Now, listen first, all of you. So if you'll observe here, so as we have studied the nutrition in plants, understanding plants are called as what? Autotrophic organisms. Yes or no, ma? So plants are the primary producers of food. So we used to call them
Yes,
as
sir.
autotrophic.
Autotrophic organisms.
Understand? So autotrophic organisms which can manufacture, which can produce, or else which can synthesis their own food.
Their own food.
Plants, they do not look to others for getting their food. So they do not always, the green plants, not all the plants, so which are present, which they are in green color. So the green color leaves containing plants, they will never look for some other fellow to getting their food. Understand? So they are food producers themselves. They can produce their food by themselves. They can produce the food by themselves. That is why they is called as primary producers of food. But if it comes to the plants, if it comes to the animals, it is not happening. Understand? It is not happening. We people, because we are also one of the animal, understanding. So we people, it is not possible to produce the food by ourselves. So that always what will happen? We are all people, all the animals are heterotrophs. What we should call?
Heterotrophs.
All the animals are. Is there any animal which will produce the food till now? Have you heard anywhere?
No, sir.
No. So we are always depends on some other organisms. Understanding? It may be plants or it may be on some other animals. Doesn't matter. Understand? So what the plants are doing, they will produce the food by themselves. But it is not so in the case of animals. So animals are heterotrophs. Animals are what? Heterotrophs. And they always depends on other organisms. They always depends on other organisms for their food. So that is why animals always need an external source of food. They cannot produce their own food. They always need some external source of food. So now we will discuss that is only how these animals, the nutrition in animals will take place, how this will get the food, what kind of animal can get the food from, what kind of organisms. That is all we'll study. Suppose now, let us go for animals, the animals first, which will obtain the food from plants or other animals. So let us see that. That is what we have to study first. So the animals which is depends on plants or other animals. So that is only called as understanding heterotrophs. Everybody. So they may be depends on plants or maybe they depends on other animals.
Other animals.
So here, animals, understanding, they cannot make their food. So they always depends on ready-made food. They cannot synthesize. So that always which is prepared by somebody. Understanding. So that is only we people will eat. Understanding. Ready-made food. Like ready-made cloths. So we always people depends on all the animals, including us. We always depends on ready-made food. So if you'll observe this ready-made food, which will comes from where? For us, let me consider for humans. Example. So example, if we'll consider humans, this food comes for where? For us, human beings. If we'll consider, we people we used to get
Plants.
ready-made food from two
Plants.
places. One is from where? Can you able to say?
Plants.
Plants. Very good. Next one.
Animals.
And
Animals.
and animals. Suppose you are a non-vegetarian, so we are getting the ready-made chicken from the correct or not chicken. If you want meat, if you want some other kind of thing, if you want fish, if you want some other thing, if you want everything it is ready-made food, which is prepared by themselves. Understanding? You are not prepared. So that is why we can say if this ready-made food comes from there, either maybe a plants, understand, or maybe a other animals. Okay, so now if you'll observe, the animals obtain their food from plants or other animals which they can eat. So that is why if you consider the human beings also, we are also animals. We obtain the food like, suppose for example, plants. What kind of food we are getting from plants, Ra? Anybody? Suppose if you take wheat, understand? Wheat, rice. Tell me,
Vegetables.
wheat, rice. That's all.
Vegetables.
Pulses,
Grams.
fruits, vegetables, leaves also. Yes or no? So leaves,
Yes, sir.
the leaves, etc. We people are eating from the plants. Understand? And if we take, suppose animals, from the animals, what kind of food we are getting?
Meat.
Very good.
Meat.
Milk, curd,
Meat.
curd. Understanding?
Meat.
Cheese, eggs,
Yes, sir. Butter.
eggs.
Butter.
Next, meat,
Sir, butter that and also.
meat, butter. That is all food. Milk
Beef.
products. Butter. This is all coming from where? Coming from
From animals.
yes, sir?
Animals.
So if you
Animals.